Welcome, everyone. This is Work Made Human. I'm Nichole Mendez, Director of Talent Acquisition here at BAM.
And I'm Jill Veglahn, Head of People at BAM. And Nichole and I are doing a little solo episode today, which is kind of a treat for us. And we'll see what you all think about it. We wanted to talk about a topic that we actually just explored with a guest. So that will be coming up. And we wanted to just kind of have a conversation around it because it's still pretty relevant, very relevant, actually. It's remote work. And at BAM, we went fully remote during the pandemic and basically never looked back. Before that, we really didn't even think it was possible without probably losing culture. We had really strong sense of culture, we thought at the time. And so we prided ourselves on that. And I don't think we thought we would maintain the culture if we went fully remote. And I think honestly, in some ways, our culture got a lot stronger, but it also changed shape too. So I'm curious, Nichole, when you think about BAM specifically, what would you say actually got better in our remote environment?
I think the most obvious one for me, being the person who's the first stop in hiring, is just, we stopped hiring within a 15-mile radius at San Diego, maybe a little bit more. So with that, you get more talent, right? You get more great people to work with. You're not limiting yourself to just a small vicinity. And as you know, in California, a lot of folks don't like to commute because of the traffic. So it was a small radius. But I think looking back, part of the reason it wasn't difficult to maintain our culture is because, one, we were hybrid already, so it wasn't totally foreign to work remote. But I think the most obvious ones too internally is connection. So you think when you're in the office, it's easy in theory to build connection because somebody's right there. You can turn around, hey, let's get lunch, or you're just laughing about something, or you can ask for support and help. And when you're remote, you have to be intentional about connection. Like there's no way around it. And we have people here who do that on their own, but then we find ways to build it into our workplace point blank. So whether it's like Mochas with Mel, or Culture Connect. So those are, for anyone listening, that's kind of how we talk about DEI specific things, or not just DEI, but just news specific things like, hey, this is what's happening in the world. I want to talk to somebody about it. Or like kind of like water cooler conversations and fun prompts. I spoke with Amy this morning, and even though it was a brief working session, we had fun, right? And we had our conversations before then. So I think between the things we do as a team to work it into our everyday, but outside of that, we're just working with cool people who are intentional about connection.
Yeah. And we have you to thank for that. we do. We have you to thank for that. I think something that stands out to me too is as we as a company got more intentional about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, we got to see our culture and our people, actually, the diversity of our people, because we were no longer looking in these two very specific demographics of Southern California and New York. So that was really cool. And that simultaneously, as our team was becoming more diverse, our culture, we started to prioritize DEI. And whether that was just a happy coincidence, there was so much going on in the world at that time. It was 2020. But I think that also really helped strengthen our culture because we started focusing on inclusion and our people much more intentionally, which is something I heard you say a lot of. That intention is super important in a remote culture. You have to be so intentional.
Yeah. I think also deep work, right? Having over communicating, putting on your calendar, hey, it's deep work time for me. You have to go out of your way to do those things when you're in a remote setting, but then it also gives you the time to do it, and also the perspective of like, does this meeting really need to be 30 minutes? Can we be more efficient and chop it down to 15? Which I think makes folks want to be so much more intentional about the connection piece when we have the time for that. So
And another thing that I think for so long culture really got wrong, like in office culture, where there was less intentionality, it was, we have the pool table and the fridge full of all the drinks and it was like I think a lot of companies relied really heavily on the things that existed in an office.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. versus what actual connection is. And it forced us to put a lot of energy into what actual connection is. One thing I keep coming back to is that remote is really good for productivity. People allegedly have more control, fewer interruptions. I don't know, again, whether I totally buy into that or not. But again, what we're talking about, culture, is a very different equation. It's connection, it's trust building, it's mentorship, and that's so much harder. So that raises the question, what are we in this remote space? What are we actually optimizing for right now? Do you think that companies that are pushing return to office are reacting to a real culture gap, or are they defaulting to what feels easier to manage?
I think you know my answer. I think it's easier. I'm not saying everyone who's in office is lazy by any means, but it's just easier when you're in person, right? For everything, I think, point blank. So
Yep.
being a remote workforce takes more work in terms of intentionality. And if you're not up for it, then remote work is not for you. So I think for anyone who's struggling with micromanagement, for anybody who's struggling with the idea of like efficiency, some folks just unfortunately need to see people doing what they're doing to believe it to be true.
Yep.
And that has nothing to do with the employees. Most of the time, it has everything to do with just trust and culture. So, I mean, that's a separate thing that you've got to tackle. You've got to let go of the control aspect of things and know you hired people, hopefully, who you trust to do the work that they were hired to do. So let them do it. And it doesn't mean the same podcast recording we just had, I mentioned, and I say to people all the time, consistently, is the 4-day work week real? Do you really have, flexibility? Or, we have our remote days here internally, but it just feels, sometimes more stressful, and I have to kind of like report back. Or if I have a dentist appointment, for some reason, dentists don't have appointments on the weekends for the most part.
Yeah, so true.
As a kid, I definitely went on the weekends. But anyways, it's like a hovering, right? It's like a pressure of I always need to tell you where I am.
Yeah.
So folks are consistently blown away when I'm like, no, it's real.
Yeah.
The easiest way to describe it is, yes, we're fully remote. Yes, we have these perks like 4-day work week because it's high trust. But with the high trust, it's the high accountability, right?
Yeah.
If you're disappearing for hours on end, if you're not getting the work that you need to get done, obviously that's a separate conversation. But we don't have that problem because we're hiring people. So,
and I think a huge element that people don't want to have to put the time in, because it is not as easy, is to set expectations and be really clear on what does this look like? What does it look like to be a successful remote first company? What is important to you as an organization? Are you a values-based company? Are you a mission-driven company? Is culture highly important to you? And I think that's potentially where people can go wrong. If they don't have real strong culture, you're going to just fail miserably in remote, because everything does just kind of fall apart. So again, there's this reliance on, well, if everyone's just in the same building together, there's our culture, there's our team, everyone's there together and done. Like there's no effort. You don't have to, the expectation is just be in office from 8 to 5, do your job. Right. And we, as you just said, we have all of these different ways that we are insisting on connection. We insist on accountability. You've got a 4-day work week, like you're welcome, but also it's not easy. Yeah. You suddenly have to get it done in 4 days. Your workload didn't decrease, which in an ideal world that would have happened, but that didn't happen. Our workloads didn't get smaller, but we said, we have so much trust in you. We think we could do the same amount in less time. And the constant communicating and over communicating of what the expectations are of our team is really important. So people know how to stay accountable, right? And then that accountability creates the trust, and therefore we can have the flexibility that we have.
Yeah.
And my personal take is that I don't think remote work failed. I just really think a lot of management approaches didn't evolve. They didn't want to evolve. They did out of necessity, and then they were like, oh, okay, we don't want to keep doing this. So as we're talking about, if you're not clear on expectations, and if you purely rely on visibility to feel in control, remote exposes that so quickly.
Yeah. In person is easy to hope people amongst themselves will talk and build a culture, and remote, to what everything you said, it's the effort, it's the over communication, and it's like the emotion, it's the soft skills and the emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And it forces you to have to work on them constantly. And if you don't want to, then
then that's my question. So these like return to office initiatives that we're seeing everywhere, are they really about collaboration, or are they about control? What's your take?
Definitely control. And I'm not saying for everyone, but I think I don't know the data off the top of my head, but I'm reading, People News, HR News, AI News, Tech News week after week. And it seems like the majority of companies who invested in AI aren't seeing the immediate return back, as in like actual money and ROI. So I think for a lot of folks, it's kind of an excuse of, if we force you back into office, 50% of you, whatever the number is, will say no. And then we don't have to give you a package, and we don't have to lay you off. So I do think for some companies, it is more of a business move and strategic in that site, because I think the AI boom is obviously very real and it helps with efficiency and all these things. But I just think we wanted it as human beings to give us that ROI so much sooner than it's actually happening. So
yeah. I also think we don't talk enough about how differently people experience work. So, right, some people thrive if they are totally self-directed, and others, and we've seen this with like early career team members or employees, they learn by proximity, or that's what they're craving, that proximity, and they can struggle more if they don't have that experience, if they are just wanting to be around people to learn, which is what my experience was. I've had the gift of doing both, as have you. You've had the gift of learning from proximity, being around, being in the office, and knowing what that looks and feels like. And you now know what it looks and feels like to be highly trusted and have all this autonomy and flexibility, and to be self-directed. So I guess, like, let's see. Who do you think that remote works best for, and who do you think that it's hardest on?
Right now, if you asked me to be in person Monday through Friday, like just the idea of the commute is what kills me. I will say I'm one of the unique people who, well, I won't say unique. I think it's a lot of us. We just maybe don't talk about it as much, who loves remote. Like, I love remote. I don't want to go back. I'll also be the first one if we have an event in New York City, right? It's like, oh, tap me in. I'm not client facing, but if I can help, I'm down. Because I do miss the turn around and just talk to someone. So I think if you're somebody who's reliant on that constant connection, it can be tough at first, but there's ways around it. I think it's just knowing. And that's where I think the efficiency comes in. I am a talker. That's why I'm a recruiter. I will babble. Multiple touch points with folks in the pipeline, like constantly. So if you let me, I will talk your ear off. And I can see how that's not always efficient in the workplace.
But that connection. And I think that this is such an interesting challenge, is do you trade a little bit of that connection of just the being able to look over like we used to be able to do and just chat and talk and shoot the shit for efficiency? And it's just such an interesting juxtaposition, because then you'll have people who will argue the exact opposite, that you are less efficient when they are not seeing you in the office. I know. And I think we've probably lost a little bit of that. We've lost that spontaneity of those unplanned conversations, and we make up for it where we have these structured times, like you said, mochas with Mel, culture connect where we have these set times. But again, that's not spontaneous. They're not unplanned. We have to plan them. We have to be very intentional.
Yeah. And I think of the conversation we had earlier this week with Sophia. I'm not a parent. I've had to be a caregiver. I have 3 dogs. And I just remember like commuting from Jersey to New York City, so much time away, like late nights in the office. I just wasn't as happy because I wasn't able to feed myself as a human being. So I think it's worth the trade-off. Yeah, I'm not able to turn around and say, hey, Jill, hey, Ramel, hey, Kendall, whoever I'm, working with, and, laugh about something silly in the moment. But I can pour so much more into work because I'm fuller as a human being because I just have time back, whether it's going to the gym or taking care of the dogs and not having to worry about hiring somebody to walk them and, are they entertained? So I think for caregivers, parents, anybody, if you have folks in your life that you have to think about, I couldn't imagine having a child or somebody that I'm responsible for.
Yeah.
Every day.
No, I mean, and as you know, I'm now in this position where I'm full-time caregiving for my father. So the flexibility that I have to work from home is the only reason I'm able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it just wouldn't happen otherwise. I don't know what we would do otherwise. And so what I appreciated about the pandemic was it just exposed all of our humanity. There was no more segregating. This is work Jill and this is personal Jill, and they are very different. They even have different wardrobes and they speak different, right? It was just fully exposed. Here it is. Here's all our messy human. And I love that we decided to embrace that. We leaned so heavily into, we are dealing with full humans here and we want the full human. We're not just going to say it. It's not just something on a wall, bring your whole self. We actually really want to understand our people in their fullness and their wholeness as much as they're comfortable sharing. And I think that's one of the things that remote work insists upon, because you have to be intentional about your communication, your connection, your work time. Like you said, you have to create these pockets for really intentional deep work, and you have to create these pockets for really intentional connection. And I think maybe that's what is missing just across the board, is just being really intentional about when and why we come together, no matter what, whether you're in office or not.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah. Okay. Final question. If we were building BAM from scratch today, knowing everything we know now, would we choose the remote model that we have now? Or what would we be more honest about this time around?
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer that it works for us.
Yeah.
Because we've made it work, right? We were putting in, and it's not just Beck, it's not executive, like it is everybody across the board contributing in some way, right?
Yeah.
To making it work. And we all tout the benefits that we have, and we all tout remote work and flexibility. But I think we have to be honest that it's just not for everybody. Like I've had conversations, and it's my own bias. I've had conversations with folks who are like, where I either hear the hesitancy or they'll say, I'm not going to move forward right now because remote work is just something I've never experienced or I'm scared of. Yeah. And that's okay. And I think in my head, I'm like, why? Like, why would you? How is it not a no-brainer? Yeah. But it's just not for everyone. And I think we have to be honest about the fact that it requires a level of, I don't know if it's like self-leadership, but just like gotta be able to manage your own time, your space. We're talking about braving internally. You've got to manage your own boundaries. Yeah. That's a lot of self-management in so many. It is. Even if you have the support of your manager and your teams, you're relying on yourself a lot as well.
I think that is such an important factor to acknowledge, is that it is not for everyone, and nor it does not need to be. But for you as, talent acquisition, making sure you're really exploring and discussing and dissecting with people what this looks like, what our culture looks like, what the expectations are, is huge, because it is not for everyone. And also recognizing that we consistently ask our people, I have the stay interviews once a year where I ask what keeps people here, what is so important to you, why do you continue to choose to be here? And at the top always is our flexibility and autonomy. So we listen to our team. And I'm guessing that if at some point suddenly everyone decided they wanted to be in office, we would consider that. I think if something shifted globally or societally or whatever, where suddenly everyone was like, no, yep, we want to, we would consider that. We would listen to our people. But for now, it's clearly working. We have people who thrive in this environment, choose this environment, want this environment. And we just will continue to be super intentional about what that looks like and how the organization can thrive, since our people love it so much.
Yeah. And I think the last note is when we do have, the once a year retreats or any time together, even if it's, MMDs, New York, or whatever it is obvious how much more intentional. Like, it's not the happy hours. It's got like we have dinner questions prepared. It's just, everything is always so thoughtful, because you want to make the most out of the time that you actually do get together, because it's rare.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's the word that we have repeatedly said. It's intention.
Mm-hmm.
In order to have a thriving culture with real connection and real efficiency, you have to be so supremely intentional, and we are. So, yeah.
And emotionally intelligent.
I can't say that is just rampant. We're very lucky. Oh, thank you, Nichole. This was lovely. We are Work Made Human, and it's so fun to get to talk to my counterpart here about things that we talk about on the regular here with you all, and share a little bit about our company and what's important to us, and why we do what we do when it comes to our people, our humans. Thank you so much.
Until next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.